All right. Gonna get started here. Make sure that X is streaming as well. Is it? Yep, connected. All right, cool. Okay, great. So what I'm gonna do is walk through my workflow when using Cursor. Sorry, this is gonna be. I'm working on a laptop here, so this is gonna be a little bit janky, but I'll try to keep the jank to a minimum. So I just want to show like the workflow that I use when working in Cursor. And specifically, I'm going to add a new page to StreamTrack. So StreamTrack is my software that helps live streamers track metrics, all the metrics that they need to pay attention to. So I'm here in Cursor. I am going to go to the dev branch, and the dev branch has all the latest. We're going to pull from dev, and then we're going to get rid of some files here. Actually, those should probably disappear. Been having some issues with some audio files not going away from my Git. They are not needed though, so I'm just gonna move them to the trash. Okay, so I've pulled the latest from dev. Let's create a new branch. If you're not familiar with Git, it's basically a good way to store code in a repository and specifically to have versioned changes and different branches so that I can go ideate on a branch. I go play around with some stuff on a branch. Maybe I don't want to commit it, I just discard that branch, or I do want to commit it, I can then commit that to dev, pull that into dev, and eventually that goes up to main or master, which becomes my production branch. So, okay, so in Git, my workflow though is I have a dev branch, that's the latest version of code. Ideally that's also in main, but sometimes that's kind of like a staging ground where I can do some further testing before I push everything into production. So dev is really the source of truth for what the latest code that I want to work with comes from. So I pull from dev, make sure I hit that little that fetch or resync button here to synchronize changes. So I've got all the latest changes from dev, and then I'm going to create a new branch name here. And in this case, we're going to call it a transcription page. And so what I want to do is add a page within my application that allows users to view and download transcriptions. The transcript, so this is a new feature in StreamTrack. Basically, the second that any stream ends, we trigger a function, a long-running function that goes, downloads all of the video files for that stream, and then processes them with an AI system that creates transcripts, chapters, and even speaker diarization, meaning it says like speaker A said this at a certain time, speaker B then responded with something else at a different time. So those things are really nice to have, to be able to have, speaker-based transcripts. So maybe we go through and we label, okay, A was Bobby and B was somebody else. So that's the first thing. The second thing is having the chapters. What we can do is just copy and paste that into something like YouTube, and then we'll have those nice little chapter segments at the bottom of our video. All right, so what we're doing right now, though, is we're going to create a page. So I already have the data, the triggered function. So the function gets triggered, it pulls that data down and inserts into my database. I'm going to show you my database here. I'm using Supabase. I absolutely love it. Supabase is the best. If you haven't tried it out, check it out. I wish I had an affiliate code. That would be cool because I would probably push it even more. But in my Supabase database, I have stream transcriptions. That's the name of the table. Let me see if I can make this little guy go away on the side. No, I can't. All right. Well, I have stream transcriptions, and in here we'll see the important part is the utterances and chapters. So utterances are basically the really long transcripts, and you'll see here there's a big JSON object, so it's categorized as a JSON B, and it's everything that was said during this stream with little timestamps on there as to when they said it. Usually the timestamps only break if somebody else is talking. So for example, here we had speaker A and then a speaker B came in, a second person came in, so then we see a separate segment there. There are ways with the API that I'm using here that we could have more granular transcripts, but I don't think that we need that quite yet. We'll see once our customers, our users get back to us on it. And then what I think is really cool is the chapters. So chaptering goes through, it looks at those transcripts and separates the video out by different segments and says, all right, during this specific time, we talked about X with a little summary. And then, during next time, we talked about why, and it gives us the start and end times in the stream for those chapters, which is really nice. So now what we want to do is we want to make this visible to the user. So the data theoretically is in our database. Let's say I'm a Stream Track user. I've come in. I'm at a premium or ultimate subscription. My streams start and end. Once they end, the transcription is now in the database. So now I want to go in and retrieve it so I can copy and paste it to put it into YouTube or something like that. One of the reasons why I'm streaming right now is that I need to get more in the head of my users to make sure that I'm actually solving the right problems for them. So I'm going to start streaming more in order to do that. I highly recommend that if you are someone who's a so-called vibe coder, I hate that term, a coder, an engineer, a founder, someone who's working on their own trying to build software, you need to get into the actual head of your users and not just like think that you know what they want or have some good ideas that you want to play with. You will run for maybe 6 months and then run out of steam or run out of money because you're just playing with good ideas. You're not solving the problems that they have. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create this new branch in our code called transcription page. I'm not going to publish it yet because I haven't made any changes, so there's really no point to quite yet. And then what we're going to do is open up cursor here. Let me make sure on my stream that you can actually see that because I think my head might be in the way. So I'm going to move my head to the left side. There we go. All right. Okay, so you should see that now. When I minimize this now, you'll see where I'm working here in cursor. Okay. My workflow for cursor, the whole point why you probably came to this video, is first we need to plan, then we implement, then we validate. It's kind of in that order. So let's start with thinking about I'm a user, and let me show you the app in case you haven't seen it before, because this might help give you an idea of what we're working with. So I'll just show you the localhost version here. I like the OAuth because I don't like typing usernames and passwords all the time. And so this is the app. This is where, and this is localhost, so there's not a lot of good data. But this is where, as a streamer, I'm going to collect all of my views. I'm going to pull social media metrics. I'm going to look at sentiment for chat messages that are shared. All of that stuff, right? And so what we want to do is add. So right now we've got sentiment that kind of tells us a little bit about the stream after the fact, right? So that's maybe helping us do a little bit of an analysis as to like what was the quality of the stream, how can we do better next time? Okay, that tells us a little bit about where the audience was at. We've got actions. We've got link shortener, which allows me to then create and post links to the stream. Then I can track metrics as to who's clicking on those links, where are they coming from? So where's my audience come from is the question that answers. And so really I'm thinking maybe a new one here with like a page icon that says transcripts or transcriptions. We'll check, I like to use Grok to make sure that I'm thinking in the right terms here. So we could use Grok and say, all right, tell me about, is this the right approach? What's nice is that Grok 4 is now available in Cursor, so I could go there, but for some reason this interface in Grok works really well for me. Okay, so I'm going to come through and I'll validate the idea that I have. So I want to create a page where users can download transcripts or transcriptions, question mark, in Stream Track. Help me identify what is needed, especially for streams that get posted on YouTube. Now I know we are a Rumble friendly team here. I'm gonna use deep search for that. And so, we really want Rumble, of course, to be successful, but a lot of creators will stream and then post their videos on another platform like YouTube. And so that's something that that we want to be aware of, and that's really what this is coming for. The Rumble, from my understanding, I don't think Rumble does chaptering quite yet. When it does, though, this will be a nice. It'll probably take a similar formatted output, and so that's something that we want to be aware of, right? We want to say, hey, YouTube streamer, you want to upload something like your transcript or your chapters into something like YouTube. Therefore, here's the data that you need. So you just hit copy paste. Maybe you change it a little bit, clean it up because it is AI, so it's not going to be perfect. And then save that, and you'll have your transcripts, your closed captioning kind of stuff, and your chapters there right in YouTube, and eventually, hopefully, Rumble. Okay, so here it's giving us, okay, user interface design, some ideas about integrating with the YouTube API, which would be good. We do in StreamTrack in our, it's right now Teams, but I'm going to relabel it to settings soon. We've got an integrations tab, and here we have an ability for users to give us OAuth for YouTube. So we could actually put the integration in at a level where it automatically, we could do automatic posting to YouTube, automatic upload, and transcripts, as well as chaptering. So we could do all of that. Right now it's a copy paste setup, and it's probably not the end of the world to leave it like that, but that's just something we want to keep in mind in the future, is that maybe we want to do that. Okay, so all right, so let's take a look. So it's saying, some user requirements. You always, before you go and build, you need to think through the user experience, because the AI systems are lazy. They will try to take the shortest amount of time to solve your problem. And so that means that they don't necessarily think through every possible permutation. We have to force the system to think through all of those different permutations. Here, let's see, it's thinking that we're going to generate the transcript in the browser. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do is probably give it, a little bit more of a clue. But really, I guess the question is, let's say that I already have an idea of exactly what this format's going to look like, and we have our data, and we really need to rely on our data format to get, to do the actual software engineering of here's your data, here's your desired output, how do I get from A to B? So, and there's a lot here that Grok is saying, I just don't know, but here's what you could do. So what we want to do here, we're just going to ask this. What is the format? And I like this because Grok can do deep search. I don't think Grok 4 does deep search quite yet. So we'll leave it at Grok 3 with deep search. We'll say, what is the format of YouTube chapters? We want our system to output in that exact format. All right, so maybe Grok in this case is only going to solve this specific part of my problem, and we'll do something else for the rest of my problem. And the rest of my problem really being here that I need to somehow format it. I need to put a little copy button there, so you just go, here's my stream, copy the chapters, paste them in YouTube, and hit save, and then your chapters will show up there. All right, cool. So it's going and gathering that. I want to show you something else that's really important that I also do. So here, if we do like YouTube docs, it might be YouTube API docs, which isn't ideal for this problem, but let's just take a look. Yeah, the data API. So if we copy the URL to the API docs that we want to work with, and if I go into cursor, I'll go cursor settings. I'm going to go to indexing and docs. I absolutely love this feature. It's so cool. I'm going to hit add doc, and I'm going to paste that URL. So this is at the bottom of that indexing and docs page. When I hit enter, it goes and it scrapes the page to figure out, okay, what is this? So we're going to say this is YouTube, I think it was the data API v3, and I hit confirm. What this is going to do, what we see it doing here, is it's going to go through and index all of the pages that are in that document or in that set of documents, which means I can call them right here in chat now. I can go at docs and then go down and say YouTube data API v3. Review the format for chapters. It's going to be like a text-based format. So let's highlight that. Review the text format for chapters. We want to, actually, I'm probably going to reformat this a little bit. Let me start over because this is a little sloppy. Okay, so let's start with the top of our prompt. We are going to add a page to StreamTrack that allows the users to download, let's say view and download, transcripts from recent streams. We also want to display the chapters in a YouTube friendly format. Research the format, database, and front-end architecture. Make a plan. And I'm going to change this agent to be planning mode, and I like using O3 for planning mode. I'm not using Grok 4 yet. I don't think that it can use the search tools that I would want it to, so that it searches through my code base. A lot of times it just gives me back like, hey, here's what my plan would be if I had access to your code. And I'm like, that's not really helpful. So we'll do planning with O3. I made sure that the plan mode, I think, is a custom one. Basically, I set search tools. I also gave it MCP servers. I've got like a Postgres MCP server in there. And then did I have my prompt in here somewhere? I don't know where that went. Yeah, I don't know where my prompt went, but that's okay. So basically, it just says you're in planning. Don't try to write code. It could probably be a little bit better. All right, so now we're in planning. We're going to let that run for a minute here. I'm going to close all my open tabs. What I expect it's going to do, now this is a, what do you call it, app router, next app. So we use the app folder, then we've got a few subfolders in there for use for grouping. So marketing, authenticated, and auth. Within the authenticated, so that's where all of our actual content lives, is in that authenticated folder. It's in parentheses because that's not actually a part of the path. And so if you leave the folder in parentheses, it's good for grouping logically, but it's not part of the path to get there. So in this case, it's streamtrack.live/dashboard, links, metrics, and so on. All right, so you can see here cursor's doing research, so it's looking through the YouTube API, which I love because it's going to get us that format. I will toggle back to Grok as well and see if it ever came up with an answer. Like, did it give us, yeah, here it is. So here's the format. I had seen this before, so this checks with my, I saw it on some video that somebody was posting about how to make chapters. So that exactly looks like what I want. So I will make sure now that that I have this formatted properly. You can see though the issues that we might encounter. So formatting, if it's less than 10 minutes, then I don't need the leading 0. I would guess that it wouldn't be upset, that YouTube probably wouldn't be upset if I don't have those leading 0s or even leading hours of 0. But we'll try to stick to this format as much as possible. It's easier to look at. As the user, I can say, oh yeah, that's what I want. I could even then come in here pretty easily and just kind of move some numbers around if I wanted to change those chapters. All right, so we'll check back in here. Of course, this thing always scrolls so fast. I like to go back up to the top and kind of review the plan. So guiding facts discovered, it's always good to review these to make sure that it actually understands your code base well. Sometimes it'll make assumptions or hallucinate, and then you're working off of bad info. Or then if it doesn't realize that certain things already exist in our code base, it's going to write new ones and we'll have duplication. All right, so StreamTrack already tracks all live streams in public.live streams. That's true. No transcript chapter tables exist yet. That's not true though, because we have in our stream transcriptions table 2 columns, utterances and chapters, and that's where we have transcripts and chapters. So we'll have to make sure that it's aware of that. Rumble pipelines show a good blueprint, durable functions, whisper, periodic chapter summarization, save to database. Okay, so that's how we get data into the database. The V3 only lets the uploader download captions. For most customer streams, we won't have the OAuth scope. We therefore need the same whisper-based pipeline we use for Rumble. Okay, YouTube friendly chapters, this is the part that I care about, are simple description lines, 0, 0, 0, intro, and so on. That's exactly what we saw on the other one. What we want to do, so here it's already writing a data model, but I know this is wrong. So I'm just going to jump straight to fixing this. So, and I like to add the file, of course, just because then it's more accurate. And we're going to call this streamtranscripts.sql. I use a declarative schema with with Supabase. Ever since they came out with this, I think it was in February or March, it's been a game changer. Declarative schemas are awesome. Basically, what I have in my folder, I'm going to show you here. And I know you're not really supposed to show your data model, but I'm going to show it anyway. Supabase, schemas, and migrations. So now migrations, it's a very long folder. I have because migrations over time are how we get the prod database to look like the exact format that we want. The schemas folder is the exact format that we want. So keep that in mind. Schemas is declarative, meaning I say this is exactly what that should look like. The migration is how we get from the current state to that desired state. So what we do is we build out the schemas. They run in order, so you do have to stack them in the way that you would want them to be built in the actual database. And here, for example, where did it go? Stream transcriptions. I'm looking for it. It's 25, but I don't see it here. Where did it go? That's weird. Let me hover over this one and see if it tells me where it is. I don't see it there. Did it move? It should not have moved. Let me check yeah, I don't have anything here. Okay, that's really weird. Well, I'll show a different example, though here, live streams is an easy one to look at. But yeah, I really don't know where that went, so I'm gonna have to find that because here it is, and it's showing that it was deleted. Why would it have been deleted? Not in dev, it wasn't. All right, well, that's a problem that we need to solve. The data definitely still exists. I mean, you can see it here in this file. It must have gotten deleted by accident at some point. So that's something that we'll need to figure out. Here, what happens if I publish the branch? This is like Git weirdness that should not have happened. Yeah. Merge pull request. I really feel like maybe we built it that we didn't grab the latest dev is my thought. So let's go back to dev. Yeah, it says 1 week ago, so it's not. So I'm gonna say pull, and I think that's gonna bring back my file. Or I didn't merge. Let me check the status of my pull request. Oh, I didn't merge it. That's why. Okay, I'm being stupid. So so I was waiting. That's right. I was waiting for BugBot review. So I have Cursor BugBot in my pipelines for my PRs. So it checks the PR, the pull request in Git to make sure it's good. Here, I'm going to merge that. Now we're going to see all the right tables. All right. So this is going to fix the problem. So that was ready to merge. I just hadn't hit the button yet. Okay. So now if I fetch from dev, there's my 25 stream transcripts. So I'm happy. What that means, though, is that we should probably go back to the beginning prompt and make sure that we start this from the beginning, right? It was saying, hey, you don't have any data. This is funny. You didn't have any data for streams or for transcripts or chapters. And it was true because it wasn't seeing it because I hadn't committed the code properly. So now I'm going to create a new branch before I make any changes. So again, latest version of dev now with that proper branch merged in. We'll call this transcriptions page 2. I'll delete the other one later. There we are. We don't need to publish it yet. Here in this, now this, no changes have been made, so we can just rerun this prompt, and it should do it based off of now the latest code that we have available. Okay, so while that's running, I'll just explain the declarative schema. So what happens is we've got here in this case, let's look at stream transcripts. We've got stream processing jobs. This is a table that defines each processing job so we can track the status of it while we're running. We don't want to have duplicates because that costs money in the AI APIs. And so in this case, we just we're tracking them, making sure that we're not running duplicates. The big table that I care about those is called stream transcriptions. And this then associates every live stream with its specific transcription with utterances and chapters. Utterances are like people talking, but it has with speaker tags to say speaker A said this, speaker B said that, and then chapters says start time, end time in milliseconds. Here's the gist as well as a summary of that specific chapter. Okay, cool. So now we've got our research findings, so let's use this. All right, so Supabase already stores everything we need. Perfect. Yep, that's what we wanted to hear. So now it's seeing the data or the database schema. Indexes and RLS policies are in place, so we don't need to touch anything at the database layer, which is great because I hate always updating the database. It just gets risky with too many changes. Transcript file formats users typically expect. Okay, so we would want plain text, SRT, or web VTT. So we could try to support all of those. I think we have all the data, and as long as Cursor knows the format, then we can just put a little download drop down that says, hey, you can download in these three formats. YouTube friendly chapter formats. Okay, it knows the format, which is perfect. And that's maybe because I gave it the API, maybe because that's just super common knowledge that would be in its training data. That I know it doesn't use training data when it generates a response, but if it's common enough, then those things do kind of bubble up in the actual responses. Okay. It's planning out how it's going to do that. Front-end architecture, it's going to create a new page called transcripts. Perfect. All data fetched with React query wrappers over Supabase JS client. Perfect. It's going to do some components. An API to return the export format. Perfect. Chapters.txt if we want. I don't know. I mean, this is again why I'm getting into the business myself, just so I can figure this out. But when we go to upload, it might just be a copy paste thing that we can do, and we don't necessarily need to download. But throwing a download button on there usually doesn't hurt and doesn't really cost us much here. And then RLS already covers row access. Okay, so this is exactly what I was hoping to see. This is the plan. This is a great plan. So now this was planning with O3. O3 is super powerful and not very expensive, so I love that one. It might cost me a little bit though, but now I'm gonna use the auto and I'm gonna use agent, and all I say is implement. I can say implement this plan, but it really doesn't matter. Just saying implement will get us moving here. And now we're gonna see that the tool has access to all of the code. I have set this, I think, on like full execute mode, so it just runs, and it's going to add files, delete files, do whatever it needs to in order to build everything out. So we're going to give this a couple of minutes, and then I'll show you how I validate. So that's the big key here, is that we need to validate the response, right? This thing's going to create a whole bunch of files, and some of them are going to be really good. People say it's like on the end of the bell curve. You're either seeing genius or complete idiocy out of these systems. I completely agree. Oftentimes, it's your context, and I heard this from someone else. I think it was indie dev Dan, but context, model, prompt are the three things you need to pay attention to. So the context we're providing is all of the code that we're giving it access to. Of course, the model that we've selected, in this case, it's auto. Cursor's doing a really good job with auto, though, and it's, I think, no additional cost, so I'm going to give that a try for a while to see how that goes. And then the prompt, what am I telling it to do, and what am I telling it not to do? Well, so then this thing is going to come through, and it's going to create a whole bunch of files. We're going to validate those files. I like to usually do it here in the changes folder. Sometimes it's really hard to see in this little pane on the side, so I like to see the file and then give Cursor feedback that says, hey, fix this, fix that. And typically, before I commit any of these changes, even to my branch that I'm working in, I need everything to not only work properly, but to be to my kind of satisfaction. Things that I need to pay attention to that this thing loves to duplicate are Supabase clients. So it's always trying to create a new Supabase client like system. I have a Supabase client system. The client is how we access the Supabase database or the Supabase entities. And I don't need a new one. And actually, it kind of messes things up when you create too many at the same time. So So we don't want to create a new one. I see here just in this little use transcript that it's giving me at library Supabase client. So it is pulling from my code base as opposed to just saying at Supabase.js and creating a completely new client system. This client system, I'll show you real quick, uses a, no, yeah, this is it. Uses, basically, it prevents us from creating too many. So it memoizes, I think is the right term, the client so that we're not creating a new one every time something needs to query the database. So that's really important that we're not duplicating that client over and over and over. That can cause all sorts of issues. And I think Supabase doesn't like it when you have so many like open connections that are the same but different. So that's why we want to make sure to use that. And then I love how one of the things that I have, while it's still running here, I'm just going to show you my cursor rules. So if you want to really put some constraints around the system, these are really smart rules to have. Put a .cursor folder at the root of your folder structure, and then within that a rules folder. You can create these if you go to cursor settings, and look for rules and memories. You'll see in here those rules are you can add a rule. It will add a file into this little folder. So either way, you can do it in the UI or directly in the code. I have one rule here for modular clean code. Do not repeat yourself. Do not be lazy. In plan mode, just give me best architectural recommendations. Do not add emojis in log messages. I really don't like emojis in log messages. I know they look cute, but I don't think that's a production friendly thing to do at all. I like camel case for API interface parameters. The problem is sometimes the system will go, I want snake case with little underscores between the words, and then I want camel case with capitalization to separate the words. It's too confusing, and then the system starts confusing itself because it's like, updating old code and it'll start just changing parameters around. It's insane. So this one right here is really good. The line that I lean on a lot here is keep files less than 500 lines. There's two reasons for that. The first one is just to keep things simple and modular. That helps to keep the code modular when you force, a new function when something would just be a really long single line. The other thing is that the files get, like cursor and Cline, because I've used Cline quite a bit as well, get really confused when you have really long files. Sometimes I think the file actually gets truncated either in memory or in the prompt. And so then it's like trying to edit files that are longer than 500 lines. It does not work at all. So just when I say keep files less than 500 lines, it really helps keep this super simple. Make small changes, keep business logic simple and maintainable. All of these things that we would like to think of, as like if you're a senior level engineer, these are things that we just do automatically. But we have to tell the system because otherwise sometimes this thing just goes off the rails. So those are some of the rules that I use, and they work pretty effectively. I'm sure there are others though that I'm missing, so feel free to comment if you think I'm missing any rules that would really help my flow here. All right, so it looks like it's almost done. The one thing that we're going to need to check on is, and actually maybe I'm seeing it here. Well, here, let's review the implementation. So it says utility functions were created, React query hooks were created, an API route for exporting. Now, the weird thing, this is weird, I think, for me at least, not a super experienced software developer, but with Supabase and Vercel or Next, my next app hosted in Vercel, the front end queries directly to the back end without hitting API routes often, right? And so that's what's happening when we create a Supabase browser client, is that it's actually the user authenticated directly to Supabase, asking, pulling, querying data from the database. That's crazy to me because usually things go through an API. So that's why we only created one API route, but we're now going to query a whole bunch of data when we pull up our transcripts. All right, and it looks like our chapter timestamps are going to look good. The one thing I wanted to say is that we want to give the users a copy button in the user interface, so we'll see how that goes. What's cool, and of course what's maybe I think like the AI or the AI thinks like me now, one of the two or both. I wanted a little page icon. They gave me a page icon. I didn't specify that. That's just something that I guess is probably fairly logical when you talk about transcripts. When I hit the transcripts button, We have an issue. The reason we have an issue, I'm going to show you why that's probably happening. Here, let's take a look. Oh, I actually, it's a different issue than what I thought, but I've got middleware that checks. Oh no, here it is. This is what I thought. So when you run an npm run build, for some reason it corrupts the like the system that's running, the live system. So I just need to turn it off and turn it back on, and now I'll be able to access this page. Is that ideal? No, I don't know what the solution is, but that's something we need to fix. Okay, so now I'm able to hit the transcripts page, but I'm not seeing any data. So let's just do a little bit of debugging. I'll open up DevTools. I'm looking for errors, first of all. Auth state, there's a whole bunch of logs in here on auth state I got to clean up. You can see I've had some issues with those things, so I wanted to make sure I figured it out. And WebSockets, usually when I'm running locally, WebSockets break because of the kind of the fast refresh that Vercel has, or that Next has. I think that's at least what the AI has taught me to believe. So I don't see any log issues. Let's look up in. Of course, I'm working on a small screen here, but let's look up a bit and look for an API call to live stream transcripts here, and see if anything pops up. No, I don't actually see an API call happening. So what we'd expect to see is one of these orange guys. I ignore the pre-flights. We're looking for fetch. Here, fetch. This gives us a list of live streams, and right now it's saying no live streams. It says transcription status completed, though. You can see that here in the query when I hover over, or here we can look at it here, and it's saying, because front end again is querying direct to back end, the API or my server is not going to have any error messages for me to see. It's only going to be here on the front end. But we can see here transcription status equals completed. So now let's go look at our database and see, did we actually get transcription status is in a different, it's probably stream processing. Oh no, it actually might be in the live streams table itself. There's a new column called transcription status. Sorry if you're getting sick while I scroll too fast here. Here it is. So it's saying pending. This one is completed. So let's mark it completed and then refresh the page. Obviously, there's a separate issue there. There it is. Okay, so there's a separate issue that we need to solve, but we'll just keep that in the back of our minds. So here we see Rumble 711. That was when it was created. Durations unknown, chunk 1. And when I hit view, what happens? Okay, here's my transcription page now. And this gives me the full transcript. So that's cool. I can search it, which is kind of neat. Let's search for the word video. Okay, it's basically just because it's one utterance or one chunk, it's just filtering to that one. That's kind of neat. Not something I'm going to worry about right now, but that's cool. The other thing is, you can see here, we have our chapters. And there's the YouTube description format. But we see all these nans in here. So why don't we solve that first? So what we're going to do is we're just going to tell the system, all right, so this is the response. Here, let me just see if I can copy just that nan. Actually, here, let's copy this whole one here. And we'll say, this is the YouTube chapter display. Why are there nans? Which means not a number. So it's having trouble converting. So this is where context really matters. So the transcripts are stored like this. So when, especially with JSON B objects, the system doesn't really know exactly how the data is being stored, right? So what we're going to do is just copy an example and give it and say, here's the example. It's in milliseconds. The timestamps are in milliseconds. There you go. And now let's let that run. and we'll see what it says. Timestamps are stored in milliseconds, but the YouTube chapter format is expecting seconds. Okay. Still makes me wonder, not a number's not great, but it's going to change now. It's updating our utils. What I like to do is sometimes, this isn't necessarily best practice, but I accept all to make all of the little change bars go away so that in future prompts I can see what changes have been made, because otherwise it's like, in this case, it's a new file, everything's in green block. All right, so I just made some minor changes here. Let's just go back to our page and see what it looks like and see if that fixed our problem. Here you go. Okay. So that's good. The question is, does that fit our format? So we're less than 10 minutes. That's good. The format looks like this, right? It's not even a start and end. It's just a start time for each chapter. So I actually think that we're looking good here. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong page. Okay. What I want, though, is the YouTube description format to go up top, and I want to rename it. So we'll say perfect. Move the YouTube description format box to the top of the column it is in, and rename to YouTube chapters, YouTube friendly chapters. And then finally, add a copy button outside the box to the right. Okay. So now I'm starting to tweak the user interface. So this is actually looking really good. Now remember, we had a problem with our transcripts being marked as complete versus pending. So we need to go back, and that's actually a data pipeline problem. We need to make sure that the data pipeline is properly updating the live stream with the transcript status. Or the other option is, instead of querying, stuff's gonna break until it'll fix itself. Instead of querying the database for live streams with completed, we just pull all the transcripts from any live streams. So that might be the preferred route, because I don't know if I want to mess with the data pipeline at the moment. Okay, cool. So now we can see here that there's our YouTube friendly chapters, and they are good to go, except I think what's happening here, I'm going to ask, are we using the gist field from the chapters? I could look through the code myself, but it'll be easier just to ask. Let me check how we're using it. Yada, yada, yada. Each chapter has this. The gist field appears to be shorter. So we can either add the gist to the chapter accordions as a subtitle, use gist instead of headline for YouTube chapters. That's exactly what we want. I'm just going to say 2. And luckily, it usually understands what I mean when it gives me 3 options, and I just choose one of them. And there, now we have it. A digital ID in the UK, digital ID cards to deter migrants from coming to the UK, and so on. So those are nice looking chapters. I can copy this, and then let's just look for a text formatter. I just want to show you when I paste it, what's this going to look like that, which is perfect. I think that's, oh wait, I think the YouTube actually needs this format though. So YouTube needs a hyphen. That's called a one-shot prompt. I'm giving it an example of the proper output. So just remember that. That's it goes back to our concept of context and prompt, right? Okay, now these are YouTube-friendly chapters. I want this box to be a little bit bigger and editable. Make the chapters box longer and editable. Now the only question is, when I say that, is it going to say, oh, you want to save it back to the database and cause all sorts of other issues? I don't necessarily want that. What I wouldn't mind is maybe if this transcript like it was maybe more of a 50-50 split, because I think that people are probably going to spend more time looking at chapters than they are the actual transcript in this case. Make the right column wider. I'll just say wider and see what it comes up with. It should bump it out a little bit. Maybe not a full 50-50. Yeah, something like that. So now I could say, how do I edit? It's not letting me edit. I cannot edit the chapters. Okay, yep, still using a static value prop. It's going to change that for me so that at some point here I can edit. And this is where we get into a little bit of trouble because it's going to start doing a lot of stuff just to solve this one small problem. There, it is editable though, so that's good. Now the question is, when I copy, does it copy my edits? And it does not. There you go. Now it says, finally, I need to copy. Okay, so then it looks like it is now. So now I copy, go to this, I'll show you, paste, and there's my edit. Perfect. Last thing is I want to trim any spaces off the front of these. That's probably a small issue with the AI that I'm using, but we'll just, add that in here as well. Trim the gist, trim, let's say, spaces from the front and back of the gist. Okay. Trim is the function typically that's used to get rid of additional spaces at the beginning or end of text. So now what we should see is at least that leading space will disappear. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing it, so we're going to refresh. And there it is. All right, so now I can edit these, copy them into YouTube, and we're good to go. So the only other thing that we were missing, oh, here, download as text. Let's give that a try. There's our transcript. We'll see how that looks. Beautiful. We'll download as an SRT. These are different systems that I might need to upload transcripts into. I don't have an app to open that one, but here we can open it in text edit. Okay, it's just a certain format. Good. And then we've got download as VTT, copy chapters. So I could just go directly copy chapters there. I'm not 100% thrilled with the interface. I'm not sure if this is exactly what I want or not. I might try to make it an accordion per stream, but really imagine now like there's 30 streams in here. It could get a little bit difficult. So we'll give this a try, and this is a really good start. Okay, so the final thing that I do now, we've basically done everything that I wanted to. Oh, except we want to edit the filter. Okay, so when loading and I see an error here that we also want to solve. So we have just a couple problems to solve, and then we'll do a final review. So when loading the transcripts page, just filter to live streams. The current user can view with a transcript associated. Do not filter by the, I think it was transcript status field. Okay. Again, I'm going to accept all because I want to see what changes come in here. We're almost done with these changes, and then we'll push up our PR. And then transcripts will be live. It's amazing how quickly we can move with this stuff. All right. And while that runs, I'm just going to check on my Rumble Studio. You can see it here. No live chats yet. Hopefully it's actually, let's see, session 49 minutes. Man, that's pretty good. 0% packet loss. Very nice. And we'll see what's going on. Or if I totally botch the whole thing, we'll see. No chat, so if anybody's out there, send a chat. I'd like to see if if anyone is out there. All right. Okay, cool. So let's take a look. It says, I can see that the use live streams hook is currently filtering by transcription status completed. I need to update it to instead filter for live streams that have associated transcripts. That's really just a join then, an inner join, right, between the live streams table and the stream transcription table. Show me all the rows where records exist that match in both. So now, if I were to go back to this page and refresh, of course, that one's going to be there. Let's go back to the live stream and change it back to be a pending status on transcription status. And now let's see if my stream still shows up. It does, which is awesome. Okay, that was the last change. Oh, and then we had these errors. Params must be awaited. This is like, I think this is what it is. Params, there is such an issue with all the AI systems and the new params, I think in the latest version of 15 of Next 15. Await params. And I remember when I first started working with this stuff in November and December of last year, man, I went back and forth for like an hour and a half because I didn't really understand what params were or how to await them properly. And so I went back and forth for so long trying to figure out how do you properly await the params. I don't know. In the end, this is exactly what I would expect to see, which is here, await params, and then we can pull the details from the params later in our code. So this is fine. This happened from my my API export. So let's just trigger that one more time. We're going to download as a VTT. Let's see what happened. I didn't see a download happen. Let's try one of the other ones as an SRT. Nope, I'm getting a failure on export. It's a bad request. Transcripts not available. Here, let's do a view. It's there. That looks good. Everything looks good here. So download as text. Okay, so I'm getting a transcript. Let's copy this URL. Getting a transcript not available error, and there's the thing I'm hitting, and it's like, what's happening? Here's happening because the API route is still checking for transcription status equals completed, but we removed that filter. Okay. So now let's try it. So it was when we tried to download. There we go. All right, now it's working. Oh, and then I'll go through and do more testing. The one thing I wanted to show you, so we're going to accept all here. We're going to go into the file changes. Now, luckily, there's only 6 changes that have been made. So let's just run through them real quick. What's cool is that the transcript page is brand new. We could review this. I'll probably go through and do a little bit more of a line level review, make sure that there's nothing weird in here that stands out to me, but this looks pretty standard. Just a table with, our actions that we have on there. Then this transcripts page, just by unique ID of each live stream, or it's each transcript, one of the two. And so I'm just in this little box. I'm just kind of paging through to figure out, okay, is this, did it do anything wonky? Everything looks, pretty straightforward there. Really, the question is when we edit code that already exists, like dashboard nav, it looks like we added the description icon, which is that little page icon, and then we added the transcripts path. Perfect. That's all I wanted. And then use transcripts as a new hook, and transcript utils is also brand new. So everything's new and everything's good. So we are done. What I would typically do though is just make sure you review those files afterwards and then go back to cursor. The last thing that I might do is go back to O3 in an ask mode and say, review the latest changes in this branch. Here we can commit our code first. Initial transcripts. So give it a commit message, commit it. I have a hook, a commit hook, or a pre-commit hook that builds the app just to make sure that everything is going to actually build and run in production properly. So we'll let that run for a second. But I'll tell O3, review the latest changes in this branch and look for issues, redundancy, unused code, or other issues. All right, so we let that run, but both these run at the same time. Yeah, here we've got an error, so we're going to check that one out real quick. Unterminated constant string. No, that's an old one. Let me go back. We'll go up. Error number 5, this one right here. Okay, so we're just going to copy this. And what I will do is duplicate the chat here and just paste this in and say, fix this error. We will, of course, want to see the result, but you know, fix this error is a good way to like get it to pay attention to the error and go figure out what's wrong with it. Again, it's another params issue. It's a huge pain. Okay, components using the old Next.js pages router pattern where params is a direct object, but in app router it's a promise. I'm going to ask it to add this to our memory because I hit these issues probably more often than anything else. Okay, once it builds properly, I'll tell it to do that. I can flip back over to the other chat here too and just look for any issues. This is an important step just to make sure that we're not going to commit a bunch of garbage into our code base, because the next time this gets evaluated could be a month or 2 from now. Issue 1, we're still selecting transcription status. So we removed every code path that uses it, but we still pull it from Supabase, so we want to delete it. Okay, that's a good cleanup. We always limit first, then discard any live streams that end up with 0 transcript chunks. Okay. Fine. We fetch live stream IDs, then fetch chunks. Okay. Non-standard params typing. Okay, that's probably getting fixed in the other stream right now. There's a canonical signature, so we want to follow that and then add that to our memory so we don't hit this issue ever again would be ideal. Good. 30-second static timing. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, duplicate copy chapters logic. That's good. So that's the same function lives here and in the list page. Extract it. I love that. I love that it's doing this kind of analysis. Extra state reset, fixed pixel widths. We don't want that. This is not a mobile friendly app yet, so we got to go through and probably do some kind of a cleanup there. And then interface drift. Okay, and all this is pretty standard. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to go back to this thread and make sure that we're done. Okay, and then I will implement these changes. And that's really it. So I'm going to leave you here with this, which is we've now run a cleanup on our code. We're going to commit our code, and then we're going to push it into prod. So if you like this stream, you know, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to do more of them if people are interested and if it's helpful. So have a great Saturday. God bless, and I will talk to you later.